science fiction and horror movies often go hand in hand, crafting thrilling and imaginative stories. They blend futuristic technology with terrifying creatures to both scare and entertain us. It just so happens that these two genres can blend together incredibly well, with sci-fi possessing the capacity to be as unsettling as it is thought-provoking, depending on the story being told. With that said, we present to you the top 7 best sci-fi horror movies that you will regret not watching. Before we delve into the list, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more thrilling content. Number 7. Shin Godzilla, 2016. Shin Godzilla is one of many Godzilla movies, as the franchise began in 1954 and has continually received sequels, spin-offs, and reimaginings in the decades since, by both the Japanese and American film industries. This 2016 take on the character might be the scariest yet, taking the horror focus of the 1954 original and depicting the titular monster in more terrifying detail than ever before. Reflecting a real-life disaster in surprisingly visceral detail, Shin Godzilla works as both an intense disaster film and a terrifying giant monster movie. Some social satire and dark humor prevent Shin Godzilla from being 100% horrifying all the way through, but it's still among the scariest and darkest monster movies of all time. Number 6. Nope, 2022. Jordan Peele burst onto the scene as a director with 2017's Get Out, which is one of the century's most acclaimed horror movies so far. Things got more ambitious and perhaps slightly more fantastical and otherworldly with 2019's Us, but it took until 2022's Nope for Peele to fully embrace making a sci-fi and horror movie at the same time. With this film, Peele brought something new to the idea of an alien invasion movie, thanks to a unique setting, a very restrained yet effective pace, and a truly imaginative and horrifying take on alien life forms. It's a spectacular and persistently unnerving film, and has a great deal to say about humanity's relationship with other forms of life, and some biting commentary on the nature of fame and exploitation. Number 5. Signs, 2002. Even if it's not quite one of 2002's very best movies, Signs is still largely successful as a slow-burn combination of horror, mystery, and science fiction. It's one of M. Night Shyamalan's strongest filmmaking efforts, and follows a family living on a farm, and the way they react to the news that alien invaders may be coming to Earth. It's more about the paranoia of such a visitation, and building up to it eventually happening, rather than being an action-packed alien invasion movie. Still, this has turned into one of the movie's strengths, as between some goofy characters and exchanges of dialogue, there are some effectively creepy sequences, and a sense of grounded realism that makes this one of the more frightening alien-related sci-fi movies of the 21st century so far. Number 4. The Invisible Man, 2020. The original movies in the Invisible Man series came out back in the 1930s and 1940s, and while they're generally very fun, few people would call them scary. The stories usually centered around an individual who either deliberately or accidentally obtained the power to make themselves invisible, and the strengths and weaknesses that came from such an ability, given it could be equal parts blessing and curse. Then in 2020, the franchise got revitalized with the simply titled The Invisible Man, which emphasized humor less and attempted to make something more grounded and genuinely terrifying. It generally works quite well, with the Invisible Man here stalking and tormenting an ex-partner, making the film a psychological thriller, and one where much of the tension comes from the protagonist Elizabeth Moss, trying to prove she's really being tormented by an unseen force. Surprise. Number 3. The Fly, 1986. In 1958, a movie called The Fly was released, and it had a premise revolving around a scientist getting transformed into a human-fly hybrid. It was solid for its time, but is unlikely to scare anyone nowadays. The 1986 remake, however, is genuinely effective as a work of sci-fi horror and has the potential to disturb to this day. Phenomenal special effects and expert filmmaking on the part of David Cronenberg ensure that the silly-sounding premise becomes truly frightening, and there's just something to 1986 The Fly that makes it thoroughly unpleasant in the best way possible. It's a surprisingly traumatic blend of genres, and also represents Jeff Goldblum here playing the scientist at the height of his acting powers. Number 2. 28 Days Later, 2002. Before collaborating with Christopher Nolan to great success on half a dozen occasions, Cillian Murphy was best known for starring in the post-apocalyptic zombie film 28 Days Later. The cast also included Naomi Harris, Christopher Eccleston, and Brendan Gleeson, and the plot followed several people trying to survive the weeks following a viral outbreak that turned much of the population into irrational, homicidal creatures. They're infected, rather than undead, so some would argue that keeps 28 Days Later from being a real zombie movie. But however you want to define it, the movie is undeniably frightening and incredibly tense to watch, with its grittiness and grounded nature ensuring it still holds up brilliantly more than 20 years later. Number 1. Alien, 1979. As it's one of the very best movies from the entire 1970s, it's not too big a claim to call Alien one of the greatest blends of horror and sci-fi in cinema history. It's remained compelling and likely to get the heart racing more than 40 years on from release, with a simple story that's perfectly executed on screen. An under-equipped crew finds themselves trapped on a ship with a fearsome alien creature that's broken loose and is seeing fit to hunt them all down one by one. It's a slow movie, but paced purposefully, trusting the viewer that the emphasis on atmosphere and mystery will pay off by the end, and thankfully, it absolutely does, as the final act provides top-notch suspense. If you like a video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. For more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.